See, when you deal with human rights of IDP, internally displaced persons, first of all, let us understand who are these and where exactly they are finding a lot of problems. Of course, no doubt, they are the people who have been actually plead their places due to some reasons. There are many reasons for displacement of people elsewhere in the world, not only in India. Cutting across the world, you find a lot of issues and challenges. How would you resolve them? Now you are actually emphasizing on human rights of human being from different dimensions, no doubt in it. There are so many conventions I have spoken of, be it UDHR, ICCPR, and International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1966. Then action plans we have. And apart from these covenants, we have had subsidized covenants which are actually addressing these issues. And moreover, if rather I would say, whatever you are actually finding some specific international covenants, all these covenants are actually addressing the human issue all over the world. So not only in India, but cutting across the world as such. Over the year, more than 560 multilateral treaties have been deposited with the Secretary General of United Nations. More than 560 multinational treaties have been actually deposited with the Secretary General of United Nations. Then what is the role of United Nations in maintaining or restoring international peace and security? That is very important. As it has been shouldered under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter 1945, obviously, the Security Council should take cognizance to restore or maintain international peace and security all over the world. As you have already been understood, before 1945, we had just a theoretical perceptions and practical implications. And there was no scope for understanding human rights of a human being all over the world. Why? The preamble of UN Charter 1945 has outspoken in order to understand promotion and encouragement of human rights without distinction with the race, sex, language, and religion as such. So in that context, if rather I would say, of course, when you peep into the history of mankind, there were many exploitations, denials, poverty was widespread, feudalistic perceptions were also entertaining like anything. Then the criminal activities, discriminations, all these prevailed for many years. When you look from the perspective of the metamorphosis development of the law in which you have been reading and writing every day and night. So these laws have come in on the basis of the early history, historical injustice and practical denials are the major reasons to have human rights all over the world. When we were actually drafting the UDHR, in fact, John Humphrey of Canada, she emphasized, in fact, on the basis of certain perceptions to be spoken of on the basis of civil, political, or economic rights. No doubt in it. Obviously, if rather I would say, the fairness shall also be maintained, just morality, equality before law, ethical values. So all these parameters should be looked when you are actually running with IDP, internally displaced persons are concerned. In this context, of course, no doubt, when you talk on India's perspectives, we have had some specific legislations, but which are not, in fact, addressing these issues, especially Rehabilitation Act 2013 and Disaster Management Act 2005. They are actually dealing with rehabilitation, no doubt in it. No doubt in it. However, they are not, in fact, dealing with IDP, protection of IDP. Even in 2005, we had a bill that should be looked into. However, due to political issues, it was not actually effectuated to promote and encourage the human rights of these people here in India. And when you look from the perspective of these, obviously, who are these people? Whether they have come from other countries? No. They are from our own places due to mega projects funded by the central or state government. They have to vacate the places to find out new place to lead their life. Obviously, if rather I would say earlier, when you go back to past history, human migration was quite common. Migration that itself is inherent in human history. Look at Harappa Mohenjo-daro's civilization, Sahara civilization, Assyrian civilization, and many more. The entire world was actually belonging to every one of them. What we call it as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the word is actually belonging to all. So in that context, people were actually migrating from one place to another place. And there was no scope for showing of, what shall I say, any passport or visa. We did not find, boundaries. The entire world was actually belonging to all nations, irrespective of the fact that, and there was no such kind of a boundary or what shall I say, restrictions to move from one place to another place as well. See, mass expulsion, mass migration, and other aspects were actually quite common to human being. So when you look from the perspective of these, obviously, if rather I would say, before 3000 BC, we were actually carrying goods from one place to another place based on our strength and capacity. We did not find, motor vehicles. We did not find any device to reach out the places. That has to be looked into. We invented wheels in 3000 BC. Later on, states started actually using some devices to reach out some places. So in that context, when the science and technology were actually widespread, to be given more importance to have some communications, obviously people started moving from one place to another place. In 1903, in fact, Wright brothers, they in fact invented aeroplane. In 1957, in fact, USSR launched a satellite into the orbit. That the Sputnik was actually launched into the orbit. See, man is very, very funny in understanding his own surrounding circumstances. So every day he is actually developing on the basis of some techniques. Innovation that is there everywhere. Discovery is also going on, not an issue. See, obviously, no doubt in it, when we talk on these major issues, especially with reference to IDP, internally displaced persons. Of course, it requires a lot of drill in understanding IDP, internally displaced persons are concerned. In 1998, in fact, Francis Deng was actually appointed by Secretary General of United Nations, who was actually Sudanese, appointed by the Secretary General of United Nations to research on these people, IDP, internally displaced persons. So based on his research work, we are just sitting and understanding who are all IDP, internally displaced person, all over the world, except guiding principles on IDP 1998. We don't find sound specific legislations which are addressing IDP all over the world. You just peep into, certain international covenants in which you have already been learned in this refresher course. You don't find IDP, internally displaced persons. They are vulnerable, no doubt. They are highly marginalized and weaker. So that's why I have taken this topic to address some of the issues in connection to the subject matter of IDP as such. See, according to the Central Water Commission, we have 3,600 dams that qualify as big dams, 3,300 of them being built after independence, especially in India. 695 more are under construction. According to a detailed study of 54 large dams done by Indian Institute of Public Administration, the average number of people displaced by a large dam in India is 44,182. Look at these statistics. Look at these statistics. Of course, no doubt in it, there are many challenges. After having gone through mega projects emphasized by the central government as such. It was largely in 1980 owing to struggles of a displaced person due to Narmada and Tehri projects. It was because of Narmada and the Tehri projects that the realities of a human devastation in the name of large development projects came to light. It means that, see, you talk about many things on the basis of a right to development, in which you've already been witnessed in the last classes. See, look at Declaration of a Right to Development, 1986. Even much earlier, we had, as many as theoretical observations based on a new international economic order. It was because of new international economic order, everything was actually widespread at the international level as such. When the states started giving more importance to the subject matter of right to development, the vulnerable sections of the society, especially IDP, were retracted. We retracted, and in fact, they wanted to be aloof from the holistic and integrated society as a whole. So in this context, see, especially the Land Acquisition Act 2013 and Disaster Management Act 2005 are not finding some sound specific legislations actually addressing the issues of the IDP. So, of course, no doubt, in India, we have a Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, which has put up in Calcutta. They are also conducting very good research work on internally displaced persons, and some of the obligations are shouldered on UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. But UNHCR, in fact, as you already been known, is actually dealing with refugees. And how would you make a categorical distinction between internally displaced persons and refugees? This is very, very important. And how will you extend rehabilitation process? So in order to accommodate these people, like IDP and refugees are concerned. Who is a refugee? You know very well, Article 3 of the Refugee Status Convention 1951. In fact, India is not one of the member countries of this convention. We have not actually signed on the record. Very pathetic. However, since India is one of the member countries of the United Nations, and UNHCR is one of the specialized agencies of UNO, we have had our own obligations to, in fact, promote and encourage the human rights of these refugees. See, why I have gone through these issues between refugees and IDP? At least for refugees, they do have their own support extended by UNHCR and the respective states. No doubt in it. What about IDPP, internally displaced persons? Where exactly they have come from? They are from your own country. See, they have not crossed their international border. They are within you. They are living with you. That has to be looked into. See, as compared to refugees, refugees have already been crossed their international borders. But it's not so in the case of IDP as such. So in that context, you can make a distinction between refugees and internally displaced persons are concerned. So in this context, in fact, when you look from the perspective of the data in which we have, we are all actually documenting every day and night how many IDPs are there and refugees are there. So what about the rehabilitation process? Rehabilitation process is very meager. And we are in dilemma to understand these issues too. And there are so many vitiated issues, be it on the basis of religion, political aspects, and cultural variables. This is what we have already been known on the basis of jurisprudence as such. Look at Henry Mayne's approach and Karl Savigny's approach. What they say, your rights have come on the basis of cultural variables. On the other hand, your J.S. Mill has already been emphasized by saying that your rights have come through on the basis of the value of utility. Value of utility. That's why I must share with you, the rights have come through from different dimensions. The soil in which you are living over there, through which you are enjoying your civil liberties. And moreover, if rather we would say, the entire civil society is responsible in understanding the problems of our IDP, country like India. Look at, although India has been prone to violence, it has generated few refugees. However, war, conflict, human rights abuses, and forced relocation have created a high level of internal displacement. Estimating the number of IDP in India is problematic because it's very difficult to estimate them. It's very difficult to document them. And how will you document these issues? It's very difficult because, you know, India is known for its multiculturalism and ethnic pluralism. In India, as far as 2001 census was concerned, we had more than 650,000 villages. Look at Karnataka's 29,000 villages and 30,000 streets we had, no road in it, isn't it? Now they are actually doubled due to developments that are taken place. So then how will you understand these? So in that context, obviously, if rather I would say, documenting these IDP is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill. You have to put your effort on the basis of doctrinal research and non-doctrinal research. Otherwise, it's very difficult to have certain documentation. Even on the basis of qualitative or quantitative research, or deductive or inductive research, whatever you might be running, no doubt in it. See, regular monitoring is not possible in such a large or huge country which lacks a central authority responsible for coordinating data from central and state governments are concerned. As I've already made it clear, except Article 21 and other relative legislations, we don't find sound legislations which are addressing IDP in India. See, so majority of the cases in which people have been forced to flee their homes are consequences of government pursuit of political goals and development objectives. Every year, as and when the governments are actually having their powers, they do have their own mega projects. And tomorrow you are going to target few people who are actually vulnerable in character. That's one of the major issues we have. Development-induced displacement has overwhelming dominated the internal displaced persons, especially country like India. So that's why in India, there are as many as categories of displacement. Displacement can be occurred on the basis of political causes, including successionist movements. Especially this has happened in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the killing of Kashmiri Pandits by fundamentalist successists. Look at some issues based on autonomy movement. What kind of autonomy movement we have when you are actually running with IDP? See, identity-based autonomy movements such as Bodoland, Punjab, Gorkhaland, and Ladakh have also led to violence and displacement. This is highly vulnerable, especially when you look from the perspective of Jammu and Kashmir. More than 280,000 Pandits were actually retracted. It was because of dominations in Kashmir Valley as such. And all these people who are actually living in Jammu, they are actually from Kashmir Valley. So in this context, there are so many challenging issues in understanding the subject matter of IDP, internally displaced person. Might be based on local violence. Local violence are also there, especially in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, as in urban riots in Mumbai, then Coimbatore, Bhagalpur, Aligarh, and as many as the local violences. It is because of local violences people are actually migrating from one place to another place. They are displaced due to all these. So apart from these political and localized violences, we have environmental and development induced displacement. This is what you have already been known. So what kind of environmental and developmental induced displacements you have in India? See, India has no national policy. It means that we don't find a very good policy in addressing these issues and legal institutional framework to deal with either refugees and IDP in India. So India has not, in fact, ratified the 1951 Convention and the 1967 Protocol, and does not permit UNHCR access to the most refugee groups. However, especially refugees, when you talk on refugees, look at Article 33 of the Refugee Status Convention, wherein it has spoken on non-refoulement. Perhaps many of them might have heard about non-refoulement, which is actually embedded in Article 33 of this convention, which talks about to say you cannot expel them. En masse, that itself is a violation of human rights. En masse is not at all a practice. However, there are some countries who are actually entertaining en masse in the sense that mass expulsion from one place to another place as such. See, when you look from the perspective of this Article 33 of the Refugee Status Convention, no doubt, have a look on Article 33, paragraph 1, which has given more importance to understand the protection and promotion of rights of human being, especially refugees. But on the other hand, Article 33, paragraph 2 is actually restricting in the sense that the protection of refugees is not absolute right as such, isn't it? Or enjoying certain liberties as shouldered on them are not absolute, subject to certain limitations. As long as you are living over there, so long it is your duty to respect the laws of that country. That's very, very important. So in that context, see, Article 33 of the Refugee Status Convention divided into two perspectives. One is refoulement, and another one is non-refoulement. From different observations are concerned. See how, in what manner you have to be looked into. So in this context, obviously, if rather I would say even the latest draft national policy for rehabilitation of persons displaced as consequences of acquisition of land proposed by Ministry of Rural Development does not deal with any other type of displacement except that arising from the land acquisition as such. So that's why in this context, if rather I would say understanding refugee crisis and IDP, they are actually quite demanding. So let us have certain
sir, excuse me, sir.
which, yeah.
Slide change ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ sir.
ಈಗ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ
ಸರ್? ಅದೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೆಸರು, ಅದೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಅದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಟೈಟಲ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇದೆ ಸರ್.
ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್.
ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಓಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾನೇ ಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು.
Okay.
I wanted to give certain inputs to understand these issues.
It's
okay, sir. Okay, yeah. Sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Is it okay? Can you see? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let us have a look on these issues. The internally displaced people are those who have been actually forced or obliged to leave their homes behind, notably for reasons related to armed conflict and other violence, and who remain within the borders of their country. They are not supposed to cross their international borders. Once they have crossed their international borders, they will be called as if refugees or nationals of other countries. So that is there. See, the problems of refugees are actually quite different as compared to IDP as such, internally displaced persons are concerned. There is no universal legally binding instrument equivalent to the 1951 Refugee Status Convention as such. See, when you look from the perspective of these refugees, especially in India, we have Chakmas, Tibetans, the Rohingyas, then as many as Bhutanese, Nepalese. They are well settled, no doubt in it. I think India is actually heaven for them, no doubt, since we are not finding any issues in connection to the these refugees, they are living over there, not an issue. Of course, no doubt, Article 21 of the Constitution of India is very clear. This right to life is not only applicable for citizens of this country, but also foreigners. So in that context, it's a question of life, no doubt in it, as it has been emphasized. Okay, under the pretext of the Constitution of India as such. And then, so there are some treaties which are addressing IDP. Look at 4th Geneva Convention, Article 44, 45, 49, and 70. They deal with some action plans to be emphasized even for the protection of the IDP. The additional protocol 2nd, then Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, when there is gross violation of human rights, especially genocide, then when there is a war of aggression, when there is crimes against humanity and war crimes, or any other thing, however it could be. Okay, under such circumstances, on the basis of universal jurisdiction, we have known on the basis of ad punere and ad dedere, no serious criminals shall not go unpunished. They should be prosecuted accordingly. So when you look from the perspective of these, especially in international scenario, see, we have had state actors and non-state actors. How will you prosecute state actors and non-state actors? It depends on the situational extent as such. However, it is one of the responsibilities on the part of the state to prosecute the people who have committed heinous crimes against humanity during war situation as such. See, it could be internal armed conflict and international armed conflict, however it could be. See, especially in some countries, in Yemen, Afghanistan, and others, you find a lot of people are actually migrating from one place to another place due to armed conflicts are concerned. They are highly vulnerable, no doubt in it, especially during war situation. Though we have had specific international covenants at the international level. Look at Geneva Conventions, we have additional protocols, we have Rome Statute 1998, we have. Look at the African Union Convention for the protection and assistance of internally displaced persons in Africa, what we call as Kampala Convention 2009. Though we have had all these, but the problems of IDP is actually remained. That's one of the major issues and gigantic aspects we have. See, apart from these treaties, we have a customary laws. See, customary laws, since the time immemorial, states are actually relying on customary laws. So customs should also be looked into whenever you want to go for understanding the issues and challenges of IDP, internally displaced persons are concerned. So this is what we have known in many international covenants, and time and again, as many as international judicial aspects are also being actually looked into. To qualify as customary law, it is as the International Court of Justice emphasized in Nicaragua versus United States case. It has heard that the conduct of state should in general be consistent with such rules, in the sense that the customs should also be looked into. Even in curfew channels case, arriving at a conclusion based on legitimacy of consideration of humanity shall also be looked into when you are actually addressing IDP, wherever it could be, not only in India, cutting across the world as such. Especially in the Barcelona traction case, states have certain obligations towards individual community as a whole. The court recognized that such erga omnes customary law obligations could be derived from owing of acts of aggression and of genocide, and also from principles and rules concerning the basic rights of a human person as such. So in this context, the way in which ICJ has taken several steps in understanding the problems of human beings shall also be looked into. As I have already made clear, even in the last session, before 1945, we had just theoretical observations. It was because of efforts made by UNO and its half-century enactments. We are just, running with the human rights of a human being all over the world. Of course, no doubt in it, states are also obliged. It is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to look after these vulnerable sections. There is no exception even to IDP, internally displaced persons are concerned. See, states' obligations is to the whole of the international community in protecting and enforcing fundamental rights or the human rights are concerned. This is what erga omnes obligation is highly implicated in almost all the judicial trends are concerned. See, as the International Court of Justice pointed out in Barcelona cases, as I've already rightly pointed out, so all states have the legal interest in the protection of fundamental rights, the worldwide. So this should, subsequently rise to the, principle actio popularis. So this is one of the observations that we have when you are actually running with the rights of a human being all over the world as such. See, every violation of an engagement involves an obligation to make reparation. This is what in charge of factory case, in fact, Permanent Court of International Justice came out with a very good concrete solution. If a state violates international obligations, then the state responsibility would come into picture. This is what we have understood on the basis of draft articles on state responsibilities, which were actually drafted by 5 special reporters of International Law Commission. William Repegan was there, Armada was there, then Robert Ego. All these people were actually emphasized in understanding the subject matter for the concept of the state responsibility as such. See, especially in the curfew channels case, loss of human life was actually widespread. When there was actually loss of human life, they came out with some concrete solutions to address these issues all along. See, in this context, if rather I would say, although we have had domestic and international agencies, the problems of IDP are actually remained. That's one of the major issues and challenges we have. So what kind of hypothesis you have when you are actually running with IDP country like India? Say displacement is a political and a social problem. Yes, of course. I have already been tested my hypothesis based on these observations are concerned. See, you have to strengthen its institutional capacity. See what kind of institutional capacity you have when you don't find any specific legislation which are addressing these issues. How can you implement it? Someone should be there to be helpful. We have known put out a fire before it spreads, or think before ink, or you should have been known based on touch me not is better than use me wise. So this has not been so helpful in understanding the IDP country like India as such. That's why I must share with you, we don't find certain strengthening machineries to address these issues are concerned. Then comprehensive national policy for IDP in consultation with the displaced person and NGOs and intergovernmental organization. It is highly pathetic a country like India, though we have 73rd and 74th amendment, which was actually widespread in order to give more importance to local self-government. Of course, no doubt, We have a Gram Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, even a Jilla Panchayat. We have no doubt in it. So how are they? Useful to address these issues, especially IDP at the local level. That has to be verified, especially in India. The proper enforcement mechanisms and principles. See, when you talk on these principles, the guiding principles of Internal Displaced Person 1998, which were actually drafted by Francis Deng of Sudan, who was actually appointed by Secretary General of United Nations to understand the problems of internally displaced persons all over the world. It came to, Security Council and a General Assembly. They got as many as reports from various countries, and in fact, as many as non-governmental organizations started working on IDP. When they started, submitting their reports to these external agencies, then they came out with some action plan to verify problems of IDP all over the world. In fact, Francis Deng, he visited as many as countries of the world to find out some action plans to work on the issues of internally displaced persons. See, except these principles in India, we don't find a sound legislations. Then how can you protect, promote, and encourage human rights of these vulnerable groups, a country like India? Tomorrow, you may say with mega projects, with all bags and baggages, you'll go there and you'll ask them, hey, go away from here. I have got a mega project issued by the central government as such. So how can you be, threatening the local people? So that has to be looked into. Once you have, displaced them from their places, see, they are actually, as I said, vulnerable, no doubt in it. They cannot enjoy civil, economic, and cultural rights as assured in many legislations and the half-century enactment of United Nations organization as such. So that's why, see, as long been a neglected area in the disaster response, of course, no doubt, it is because of flood, famine, and ethnic issues. The communal violence, especially in India, communal violence are actually quite common. The clash between haves and have-nots, a clash between what shall I say, upper class and lower class. So that is there. See, if at all you want to understand these issues, you have to understand how people are living over here. See, you can define what you mean by India as such, Bharata Kanda. See, you have had, a geographical definition. If at all you want to understand the India's perspective, please understand how people are living over here. That's very, very important. Those who have come from a very little background and are highly vulnerable. So in that context, as long as you are running with disaster management, so long the protection and promotion of these rights of IDP cannot be neglected. So in that context, I have come across with these hypotheses. Then statement of problem. So what kind of problems we have? Insufficient legal regime governing such persons. And guiding principles take a very broad approach to displacement. Armed conflict and communal or ethnic violence have continued all over the world, not only in India, cutting across the world. The matter of policy failure and unaddressed alienation in the name of the national interest. What kind of national interest you have? That's very, very important. See, this has happened when it comes to the knowledge of Narmada project and the Tehri projects. So many people were actually displaced due to all these mega projects issued by the central government as such. So that's one of the major issues we have. And on the other hand, entitled to full civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Any abridgment of their rights as a citizen, which is based on solely on their IDP's status, is therefore discriminatory. You say something on the basis of Article 14 and rest of others, like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. Yes, I do agree. I'm not disputing it. When it comes to the knowledge of these, uh, as many as a discriminatory process we have, that has to be overcome. Otherwise, these problems would be continued even after 100 years. So that's why difficult to estimate the total number of the conflict and violence. In India, we have more than 7 lakh internal displaced persons. So this has been estimated by internal displaced monitoring center, which has put up in Calcutta. And on the other hand, UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they're also seriously conducting a very good research work on the IDP, because they wanted to separate from refugees. So that's why they do conduct, very good research on IDP, internally displaced person, all over the world as such. So inadequately addressed by the international humanitarian responses. That's also one of the major issues we have. There are so many questions, $1 million questions can be asked. There are perennial, comprehensive, and extensive questions to be asked when it comes to the knowledge of internally displaced persons are concerned. See, which group can be considered as internally displaced person? How will you verify them? How will you identify them? Sometimes they may not be able to reveal the truth. Even if you want to go for empirical research, some people they may not be able to reveal the truth. That's one of the major issues we have. And is there any difference between refugee and internally displaced person? Yes, absolutely. I can say that there is a strongest distinction between IDP and refugees are concerned. IDP who are not supposed to be across their international borders. They are supposed to be here in India. They are within the limits of a state, but it's not so in the case of refugees are concerned. Refugees, they are there everywhere on this earth planet due to well-founded fear and persecution, as it has been overemphasized in Article 3 of the Refugee Status Convention 1951. Of course, they are actually migrating from one place to another place to lead their life. That definition is in fact redundant when Asia-Afro Consultative Meeting 1967 came in with all steps to be spoken of due to economic migration. Due to economic migration, the problems of refugees are quite common all over the world as such. So that's why United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee is actually researching every day and night to find out some solutions, especially long durable solutions, which are widespread in this convention. Of course, no doubt, a lot of obligations are shouldered on United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to understand the problems of these vulnerable groups all over the world as such. This is one of the observations we have between refugees and internally displaced persons are concerned. There is a common misconception whenever you want to understand refugee and internally displaced person are concerned. Some say they are one and the same. Yes, problems are quite common. Even a normal citizen can also enjoy civil, political, economic, and cultural rights. They are also human beings, no doubt in it. But when it comes to the knowledge of a rehabilitation process, of course, no doubt, state has to think over the subject matter as such, subject matter in connection to refugees and internally displaced person. In that context, I have designed it. Then what are the reasons for displacement? There are so many political reasons we have: environmental, ethnic cleansing, then communal violence, especially country like India, it's very difficult. The clash between haves and have-nots, clash between upper class and lower class that is there. So it is because of these reasons people might be actually migrating from one place to another place as to lead their life. Then who is responsible for the protection of displaced? Yes, the state is responsible. It is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to look after these vulnerable groups. Whether displacement should be limited only to armed conflict situation? No, it has got widespread situations. So when it comes to the knowledge of armed conflict, it could be internal armed conflict and international armed conflict, whatever it could be. See, as compared to international armed conflict, internal armed conflicts are highly vulnerable. So in that context, you have to understand these observations. Yeah. Then what are the remedies available to the displaced persons? That's there. Mere existence of rights are not well sufficient. So you can file a case. We have writ petitions under Article 226 and 227. If at all you want to talk on India's perspective, under Article 32, you can move to the Supreme Court of India as such. Even if you have failed in resolving your problem on the basis of these courts, obviously there is a lot of scope in understanding judicial review and the curative petitions. Judicial review or curative petitions shall also be filed before the Honorable Supreme Court of India as such. That's one of the observations we have. Now, whether the respective national governments have made any concrete policies to address the problems of displaced. See, in 2005, in fact, we intended to pass a bill. However, that bill was not actually successful due to political issues. Country like India as such. There are some, what shall I say, specific legislations. Look at Land Acquisition Act of 2013 and Disaster Management of 2005. They deal with few specific issues, but they are not addressing IDP, internal displaced people, in particular. Generally speaking, they are emphasizing, but when it comes to the knowledge of IDP, they are very silent. That's one of the major issues and challenges we have. Then what steps are taken by national and regional governments to ensure IDP? Of course, we have guiding principles on IDP drafted by Francis Deng. What they say, see, some academicians, they are criticizing these guiding principles based on a soft law and a hard law as such. So what kind of soft law and hard law we have? That's very important. Soft law. What do you mean by soft law? Soft law means it's a mere expression of preference. Might be based on some political agendas at the national and international level. However, in absence of hard law, then the soft law will play an important role. So this analysis can be given to you in understanding relative terminologies between soft law and hard law as such. So see, when you go to court, the people who are actually standing in the witness box or before the court, they're all human beings. That has to be looked into. Humanity shall be looked into. Simply, you cannot be overemphasized on the basis of the law in which you have derived and established according to the system in which you have. See, issues involved and causes within the guiding principles. Look at armed conflict, we have situation of generalized violence, human rights violations, the natural and man-made disasters. It is because of these reasons people are actually migrating from one place to another place. Routes to protect. So where exactly you find certain laws with a view to protect the human rights of these vulnerable groups. See, in international human rights law, you can find a lot of covenants which are addressing general rights of a human being. All these general rights are vis-a-vis applicable even for IDP, internal displaced persons are concerned, be it civil rights, political rights, economic rights, solidarity rights, cultural rights, universal. All these rights are supposed to be looked into. As you already been understood, human rights are nothing but basic rights, natural rights, inalienable, integrated, instrumental, intrinsic. They are there everywhere. They are there everywhere. They have no boundaries. If rather I would say, they have no boundaries. This is what National Human Rights Commission time and again has been actually researching with a view to protect human rights of a human being country like India. So how will you borrow such kind of international human rights law into the municipal law? This is very, very important. In 1988, in Bangalore, we had a Bangalore Declaration of a judicial colloquium to borrow or transfer such kind of international human rights law into the municipal law as such. They were widespread to understand these rights. So it is because of these reasons. So as many as cases were decided before the Honorable Supreme Court of India as such. So that's why, however, you might have got a clash between domestic and international law. When it comes to the knowledge of human rights, you have to work together, complementary to each other, supplementary to each other, and reciprocity to each other. That has to be looked into. They should go hand in hand. They should be called as if two bodies, one soul. So in that context, I must share with you the Hans Kelson's approaches, which were actually widespread on the basis of monism, shall also be looked into. Of course, this theory was actually questioned by Tripoli and Angeletti through dualistic approach that is there. However, we have had, transformation theory, delegation theory, and above all, specific adoption theory is there, no doubt in it. Look at Article 253 and 51 of the Constitution of India. They are actually widespread in understanding the very purpose of transforming such kind of international into the municipal law. This is one idea I have. On the other hand, when it comes to the knowledge of routes to protect human rights, there are as many as routes to protect human rights of these people through humanitarian law. What is humanitarian law? I must share with you, in nutshell, I can say human rights plus war. Human rights plus war is equal to international humanitarian law. See, application of human rights even during war situation is very pertinent. See, now especially Article 7, paragraph 1 of Rome Statute 1998. It has outspoken on crimes against humanity. So what kind of crimes against you have during the war situation as such? See, so it could be murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, forced transfer of population, torture, rapes, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, sexual violence, gender-related persecutions or perceptions might be there. Then crime of apartheid. So these are the crimes are enlisted under Article 7, paragraph 1 of Rome Statute 1998 as such. So in this context, if rather I would say, whenever you want to go for understanding these people, especially IDP, even during armed conflicts, there are so many challenges, no doubt in it. However, there is a room for discussing these issues based on, Article 6 of the Rome Statute. It talks about a genocide, killing of members of group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately infecting the group conditions of life, calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So that is there. On the other hand, as long as you are running with these so long, you cannot ignore Article 8 of the same statute, which talks about war crime. what is war crime? How war crime can be looked into? Then what kind of solutions we have when you are actually running with a war crime as such? This is what you have established International Criminal Court in 2002. Since then, we have been actually running with prosecution of these people. I mean, non-state actors who have created a lot of problems to the people all over the world. Maybe some places should be prosecuted on the basis of the steps taken under the Rome Statute 1998 as such. So even before the establishment of Rome ICC, International Criminal Court, we had number of trials. Look at international military tribunals at Nuremberg, International Military Tribunal for Forest, what we call it as a Tokyo Tribunal, the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. You prosecuted, Tadic in this particular tribunal, the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. You have prosecuted, KSU, who were actually responsible for gross violation of human rights during a war situation. As very recently, in fact, International Criminal Court prosecuted 2 grave crimes against humanity, especially in the Congo. Prosecutor versus Lebanga and prosecutor versus Bemba. These were the 2 interesting cases decided by ICC, International Criminal Court. So what I would like to share with you, especially during war situation, we don't know where exactly you are moving. It's very difficult. I must share with you, first of all, you should know where exactly you have come from. Then only you can appreciate where are you going. This is very, very important. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand the certain situations which are widespread during war situations are concerned. So in that context, the way in which international humanitarian law came out with some concrete solutions on the basis of Henry Dunant's approaches, who is the founder of ICRC, that's the International Committee of Red Cross. It is because of his efforts in which they were widespread in his book, A Memory of a Battle of Solferino. They come in, they are within you to understand human responses during war situation as such. So I am sharing all these, especially during armed conflict. It could be internal armed conflict or international armed conflict. The problems of human being quite common. It is because of armed conflict, people may be displacing from one place to another place to lead their life. So in that context, the international criminal law is also answerable, and we have guiding principles which were actually drafted by Francis Denga of Sudan, who was actually appointed by Secretary General of United Nations to address these issues. These are the routes we have with a view to protect, promote, and encourage the human rights of an internally displaced person, not only in India, cutting across the world as such. See, human rights can never be suspended, especially during war situation. Perhaps you may have gone through. The guiding principles, all place they deal with the pre-displacement phase, providing protection from unlawful displacement, the protection and assistance during displacement, durable solutions we have, namely return, local integration at the place of displacement, resettlement in other part of the country, or reintegration. These are the action plans which are actually taken on the basis of these guiding principles which are drafted at the international level as such. Of course, no doubt in it, when you deal with IDP issues, there is a family separation. Psychologically, you may be depressed. Psychologically, you may be vulnerable. So how will you understand that? Isn't it? So a lot of steps were taken even under what shall I say, Disaster Management Act of 2005. As many as counseling centers and mediation centers have come in to understand these issues. No doubt in it. Of course, no doubt, when you deal with the family separation, there is a lot of gaps in them. Psychological issues you have, economic challenges you have, then political issues, all these issues might come. So that in that context, it's very difficult to be looked into. However, it's your duty to have a look on to protect their interest. See, loss of documentation, that is there. Sometimes they may not be able to reveal the truth that they can share. It is because of the officials of the government as such. Then freedom of movement and in and out of a campus, and a loss of a property. These are the big challenges of internally displaced persons are concerned. Apart from these issues, we have physical security, integrity, then right to life issues, then protection from torture, rape, basic necessity of life. Then whatever you have already been studied, half century enactments, visa applicable, generally speaking, isn't it? All general laws are applicable even for IDP, because they are also human being that has to be looked into. See, over 5 million people internally displaced in India, as per the report submitted by UN in 2019 as such. The last at home report revealed and published by UN UNICEF said that almost 33 million new displacement were actually recorded in 2019. Around 25 million were due to natural disaster, 8.5 million as consequences of conflict and violence. As you have already been known, India is actually running with as many as violences, no doubt in it. Especially in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast and other places, as I've already been visited when I was actually running with one of the projects on IDP as such. I have visited even LOC also, line of control between India and Pakistan, Mizoram, Meghalaya, and all these places I have visited whenever I was actually dealing with the issue of the IDP as internally displaced persons are concerned. See, as far as this report is concerned, India, Philippines, and Bangladesh and China, especially in these countries are concerned, are highly vulnerable. People are actually migrating from one place to another place due to several reasons. So internally displaced persons are concentrated, especially the Middle East, North Africa, West and Central Africa. It is also highly vulnerable due to armed conflict or crisis or discriminations in these areas are concerned. So Middle East and North Africa recorded over 12 million IDP, internally displaced, as a result of conflict, violence at the end of 2019. Almost all of them lived in just 3 countries, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and around 5 million were actually children. The problems of women and children in these places are highly vulnerable. That has to be looked into. And I live here. You are a better judge and judge what is right and what is wrong when it comes to the knowledge of these problems are concerned. IDP population, as I've already taken some inputs through some reports submitted by the various countries are concerned. In Syria, we have 7.6 million, Cambodia 6 million, Iraq 6.3 million, the Democratic Republic of Congo 2.8 million. This has happened, especially in 2 cases, interesting cases, as I've already made it clear. Prosecutor versus Lebanga and prosecutor versus Bemba. These are the 2 cases, interesting cases, which were actually widespread. Lebanga and Bemba, they were not ordinary people. They were actually leaders of the armed forces who were actually targeted women and children. They killed as many as people. And in fact, these cases were decided by ICC based on Rome Statute 1998 as such. So in that context, we have to understand these problems even from the perspective of IDP as such. Look at, especially in Sudan, 2.2 million, South Sudan 1.9 million, then Pakistan 1.4, Nigeria, Somalia, all these. See, what I would like to share with you, these crises are more and more, especially in African continents. There is a criticism leveled against to ICC, International Criminal Court. Simply they say that ICC is actually dealing with African continents. Why? Look at all these statistics. So based on these statistics, you can reveal what the hell is going on, especially in African countries are concerned. So in this context, if rather I would say, of course, we need to have some action plan. Otherwise, these problems will be continued. We have some specific cases in addressing IDP, a country like India. See, especially in Volga Telis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation, Article 21, right to life. The Bombay pavement dwellers argued that construction of an expressway would destroy both their homes and workplaces. Tomorrow, they may be displaced. So in that context, see, first of all, you have to understand, so what kind of projects are there are funded by, state and central governments are concerned. That has to be looked into. In Million versus territory of Delhi, right to adequate shelter shall also be given. The home. What is home? It's very difficult to define home. This is what Jyotindra Nath case has emphasized by saying that where exactly a person eats, drinks, and sleeps, that is his home, isn't it? It's very difficult to define home. However, the Calcutta High Court, Honorable High Court of Calcutta has defined it in a Jyotindra Nath case, where a person eats, drinks, and sleeps, that is his home. See, once he has been actually displaced from his home, he will be fish out of the water. So that's why it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to extend rehabilitation to these people who are left out in the society. This is what we have known. See, you have to share justice to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. That has to be looked into. And see, obligations which are shouldered on the state shall also be verified. Otherwise, these problems would be continued. So in that context, adequate shelter shall also be given to these. Especially in Ram Prasad versus Chairman, Bombay Port Trust, the same view was also emphasized. Especially Narmada Bachao Andolan's case, perhaps you may have gone through Sardar Sarovar projects. So that's there in this. Okay, they have given certain directions: catchment area, treatment, command area, flora and fauna shall not be disturbed. The water quality maintenance shall be looked into. Strict disaster management shall also be looked whenever you want to go for having mega projects, especially in India. Then upstream environmental and ecological impact of big dams. It is because of soil erosion, microclimate changes, then loss of forest flora and fauna, changes in fisheries, then landslips, then sedimentation. All these, it is because of these reasons people may migrate, and you have to take collective responsibility. What kind of national policy package guidelines for resettlement or rehabilitation you have to think about it. So this is the data in which I have gone through, and I'll leave all these data to you, and you can use them. See, estimated by as many as agencies, especially in Jammu and Kashmir, it's vulnerable. As I said, as many as people are actually migrating. It's because of the violence. All in all, especially in Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Meghalaya, even in Middle East, India, you find as many as chaos and anarchies. Then Gujarat, all this Naxalite violence and displacement. It is because of Naxalism people are also migrating from one place to another place. When you don't find any, protection, obviously you will pack at late night and lead to some other places are concerned. Of course, no doubt, it is because of certain steps taken at the international level, like Bretton Woods twins, like IMF and IBRD, IDA, IFC, Amiga. All these banks are like funding certain pioneer investors. After having gone through WTO and its few enactments based on LPG system, liberalization, privatization, globalization, or internationalization, these actually people are going to be highly vulnerable. That has to be looked into, and you have to verify certain issues between haves and have-nots. This is what you have known. If you have got money, you are going to exploit somebody. If you don't have any money, you'll be exploited by somebody else. That will be an order of the day. However, it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to look after. Apart from these developments, we have untaught United Nations trade and development, unsettled models we have. On the basis of these developments, as many as environmental legislations came in. Look at UNFCCC, United Nations framework on climate change, 1992. Based on these Kyoto Protocol came in. On the basis of Kyoto Protocol and the rest of them, the Cartagena Declaration 2000 and Nagoya Protocol 2010 came in. Of course, India is one of the signatories to these covenants. India is actually known for its international relations, no doubt. This is what Nehru has taught us to understand the international relations on the basis of Panchashil principles or non-alignment movement at the international level. So in that context, we have designed on the basis of certain institutions are also. So especially in Yemen, these problems are quite common and challenging also. Some of the like-minded people have involved in this to clear the doubts in connection to the subject matter of IDP, internally displaced persons all over the world as such. Means of protection. So what kind of means of protection we have? See, protection through humanitarian assistance, engaging in more proactive protection strategies, providing protection in safe areas, protection through evacuation, protection upon return or resettlement, reintegration. When you are actually sending them from one place to another place, adequate security shall be given. Otherwise, there will be chance to have violation of human rights of these people all over the world as such. And apart from these, look at the Terry one. These cases, of course, I'll leave here. And in Vellore Citizen Welfare Forum, this is what you have already been known. Nobel laureates, Amartya Sen says, the issue of development cannot be separated from conceptual framework of a human right. Whenever you want to go for understanding developmental activities, of course, human rights shall not be ignored. Even where Krishna has also emphasized by saying that access to justice is one among human rights. On the other hand, Justice Anand, a former chairperson of NHRC, has pointed out that poverty that itself is a violation of human rights. So in this context, many of them have expressed their feelings to understand human rights from different dimensions are concerned. So what he says, Amartya Sen says, right to development, which includes economic development, economic empowerment. This is what they are widespread under Article 55 and 56 of UN Charter 1945. Based on these two main articles, ECOSOC was initiated, Economic and Social Council was initiated. So based on Economic and Social Council, we have had so many specialized agencies came in with a view to understand the issues of this. So that's why, as far as the Central Water Commission report is concerned, we have 3,600 dams that qualify big dams, 3,300 of them being built after independence, 695 more are under the construction as per as a report submitted by the Central Water Commission as such. See, Indian Institute for Public Administration has also been emphasized. The average number of people displaced by large dam in India is actually 44,182. So what kind of action plans do you have? So at the end of this session, I would like to share few action plans to overcome some of the issues in connection to the subject matter of internally displaced persons are concerned. India should develop national policies and strategies. So even today, we don't find good legislations which are addressing these issues. And some general classes are there, but we need to have specific legislation which would be addressable. Then government should ensure that specific needs and fundamental rights, and government of respective states where internally displaced persons are found should ensure that they establish and maintain an economic and social empowerment environment as such. That's very important. And adhere to their obligations under international law shall also be looked into. And that the supranational law, or what shall I say, the transnational law shall also be transformed into the municipal law to clear the doubts in connection to the subject matter of internally displaced persons are concerned. So in this context, I take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking some time to be a part of this first session. Okay.